What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Conor McGregor hasn't been drug tested in 2022. While Conor McGregor is off recovering from a broken leg sustained in his trilogy bout with Dustin Poirier, the former champ has bulked up considerably, given that he has been living on his $3.6 million Lamborghini super yacht as of late. USADA hasn't tested the former champion. Interestingly enough, reporter Aaron Bronstetter conducted some research into USADA tests conducted this year and found McGregor was the sole athlete on the UFC's roster not to have been tested this year. In a rather baffling situation, especially considering the fact that McGregor's team has reportedly declined to comment on the matter at this time. For their part, when USADA was questioned further about the matter, they provided a statement essentially stating that they don't issue comments on particular fighters. Currently, McGregor is working towards a 2023 return. When the former champ returns to the octagon, he's targeting a scrap with the winner of October's Charles Oliveira vs Islam Makhachev title fight. It's a bold ask, and one fans weren't too hyped about given the fact that McGregor hasn't won a fight since 2020. Despite that, former lightweight champion Charles Oliveira has made it clear that a super fight with McGregor is exactly what he wants. Prior to being stripped of the title leading up to his bout with Justin Gaethje earlier this year, Dubronx wanted the fight in Brazil. By taking the fight with Islam Makhachev in hostile territory in Abu Dhabi, Oliveira hoped to secure a future fight with the Notorious One. With no shortage of potential opponents for his comeback fight, we now turn to you. Who do you want to see McGregor fight when he makes his return? Give us your thoughts in the comment section down below. Nate Diaz reacts to Khamzat Chimaev's middleweight move. In the midst of a chaotic UFC 279 fight week, Nate Diaz boldly proclaimed that Khamzat Chimaev ran from him just like Khabib Nurmagomedov ran from his new opponent Tony Ferguson. The claim was a bold one. However, after Chimaev missed weight by 8.5 pounds, fans couldn't help but wonder what had truly gone on behind the scenes. After Chimaev posted on Twitter that he was bound for middleweight, the Stockton superstar responded with a tweet of his own that read, "Duh, I retired you from 170, dumb." With Chimaev destined for middleweight, it's only a matter of time before fans have a name and date for his next bout. According to reports, Chimaev has reportedly been sent a contract for a middleweight showdown with bitter rival Paulo Costa. Although Chimaev stated prior to UFC 279 that he had no interest in fighting the Eraser following a verbal altercation at the UFC PI, the fight has everyone talking. For the streaky middleweight contender, a bout with Costa would certainly put a stamp on his move to middleweight. With 12 straight wins, including 2 this year, Chimaev could very quickly find himself in title contentions at 185 pounds with a win over the number 6 ranked Costa. For former title challenger Costa, the bout will be the final one on his UFC contract.
It's a shame, finally accept that fight.
There's nothing that gets me more f***ing excited.
Finally accept fight me? I don't think so. Sorry, I don't believe in that you know? But if you want to know more, keep watching this. I will tell you everything about that.
With a potential free agency move looming, derailing the Chimaev hype train would be a spectacular way for Costa to close out his contract. We won't waste time asking whether or not you want to see a fight between Chimaev and Costa. Instead, we want to hear your predictions for how you think the fight will play out. Sound off in the comments down below. Next up, Eddie Hearn suing Jake Paul for more than $100 million. This just in, boxing promoter Eddie Hearn is suing Jake Paul for more than $100 million after it was alleged by Paul that Hearn was fixing fights. The bout in question was a cross-promotion scrap between Paul's fighter Amanda Serrano and Hearn's fighter Katie Taylor from earlier this year. With the fight being a close one, Paul wasn't too happy with Taylor winning the fight on the judges' scorecards and accused Hearn of paying off the judges.
Shows up in Saudi and scores Anthony Joshua to win the fight when everyone watched the fight. It's not a split decision. Clearly, this guy is getting paid money by Matchroom Boxing. And that's a bold statement, an accusation that I don't take lightly, but it's just blatantly obvious, and they're not even trying to hide it.
When the pair managed to keep things civil during the build-up to the fight, after Paul accused Hearn of bribing judges, things got ugly. When reacting to the lawsuit, Hearn's attorney stated, "Both legally and ethically, there is a clear line separating opinion from defamatory lies. Jake Paul knows that, and he purposely crossed that line when he wrongly accused Matchroom Boxing and Eddie Hearn of fixing fights." After offering Paul the opportunity to retract his statement, with no success, the promotion declared that it would sue the controversial internet personality for over $100 million for defamatory statements. The comments come ahead of Paul's highly anticipated showdown with former UFC middleweight kingpin Anderson Silva next month at the Gila River Arena in Arizona. The bout will look to see Paul legitimize his boxing career by facing the first true test of his short combat sports endeavor. So far, no word yet from Paul in regards to the lawsuit. However, with the promotion for the bout with Anderson Silva ramping up, Paul will likely field questions about the situation sooner rather than later. Stay tuned for updates as they become available, and before we continue, make sure you give that like button some love and be sure to subscribe to the MMA Zone for all of the latest news. UFC announces several high-profile fights. It is a good time to be a fight fan. With the final quarter of the year rapidly approaching, the UFC's matchmaking has begun to ramp up as the promotion seeks to fill out the remaining cards. This week, several bouts were announced that not only did just that, but also crossed over into fight announcements for early next year. First up is a heavyweight showdown between Derek the Black Beast Lewis versus Sergey Spivak, which is set to headline a November 19th Fight Night card at the UFC Apex. The UFC broke the news of the bout this week via Twitter, revealing that the pair would clash in a 5-round affair. For Lewis, the bout will offer him the opportunity to snap a 2-fight skid that most recently saw him TKO'd by Sergey Pavlovich at UFC 277. Standing in his way, however, is a streaking Spivak, who will be entering the bout in the midst of a 2-fight winning streak that saw him dispatch of Greg Hardy and Augusto Sakai this year alone. For the number 12 ranked Spivak, a fight with number 7 ranked Lewis could see him make a jump in the rankings. Next up, we have a middleweight showdown set for UFC 282, the final pay-per-view card of the year. On December 10th, Chris Curtis and Joaquin Buckley will collide as both men look to return to the win column following losses earlier this year. Just a few short weeks ago, Buckley dropped a unanimous decision to Nasruddin Imavov at UFC Fight Night Paris. With the newly announced bout against Curtis, he will be making a quick turnaround as he hopes to close out the year with a win. On the flip side, Chris Curtis will be looking to bounce back from a unanimous decision loss to Jack Hermanson this summer at UFC Fight Night London that snapped an 8-fight winning streak. Last but certainly not least, we have the first announced bout of 2023. On January 14th, flyweights Jeff Molina and Jimmy Flick will collide as both men look to move one step closer to a title shot. Molina has proven himself as one of the flyweight division's best young prospects since joining the promotion in 2020. On the heels of a split decision win earlier this year, Molina will now look to kick off the new year in a big way. For Jimmy Flick, he will look to pick up his second win in the UFC after earning a contract on Dana White's Contender Series in 2020. Which bout are you most excited about? Sound off in the comment section below. Last up, Bobby Green reacts to failed USADA test. Unfortunate news surfaced this week about UFC lightweight veteran Bobby Green. According to a post on the fan favorite fighter's Instagram, he was informed by USADA recently of a failed drug test. In the lengthy half-hour-long video, Green explained that he bought a supplement from Walmart that unknowingly contained a banned substance. While he thought the product was all natural, he now realizes that unfortunately was not the case.
I'm crushed. I'm like, what the f***? I had no idea, guys, what I was doing, that it was wrong, that there was any benefits to what I was doing. I would never try to cheat. I would never try to lie to my public. I'm against drugs. I'm against PEDs. I would never even think about those things. I've never even looked at the site to know what is banned and what is not. I don't give a because I don't pay attention to drugs.
The failed drug test marks the end of a rough year for Green that saw him drop a lopsided TKO loss to Islam Makhachev back in February. The fight came just a short time after his win over Nasrat Haqparast, which extended his win streak to 2. With the failed drug test, Green could very well be suspended from anywhere from 6 months to a year, retroactive to when the test sample was taken. For a fighter who prides himself on being active, the potential layoff will undoubtedly be a tough pill to swallow. Depending on how an inevitable appeal process plays out, it could be some time before fight fans see Green back in the octagon again. Stay tuned for updates on the situation as they become available. Thanks so much for joining us today. What do you make of what's going on in the fight world? Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all of the latest news from the MMA Zone. See you next time.